The manicured lawn, the two-car garage, the picture-perfect marriage. All a total lie. On a quiet night in Florida, a husband is brutally murdered, shot 4 times. His wife, she was right there. Her story was simple, a home invasion. But 7 years later, the truth emerged. And it was colder, darker, and more chillingly calculated than anyone could have ever guessed. This isn't a story about a home intruder. This is the story of Rebecca Fenton, and the perfect suburban lie she built on a foundation of blood. The year was 2008, the place a tranquil, tree-lined street in Clearwater, Florida. It was the epitome of the American dream. A modest, comfortable house shared by Larry Fenton, a 57-year-old dedicated electrician, and his wife, 41-year-old Rebecca. They seemed like any other couple. Larry was the hard-working, jovial man next door. Rebecca, a petite woman with an intense gaze, was his partner. But beneath the veneer of suburban bliss, a volatile, desperate energy was festering, unknown to their neighbors. The Fentons' home was not a sanctuary, but a pressure cooker ready to explode, primed by a dangerous cocktail of debt, resentment, and a chilling lust for control. The illusion shattered at 11:30 p.m. on a Saturday night. Rebecca Fenton made the call. Her voice on the recording, calm, almost detached, told the dispatcher her husband Larry had been shot. She claimed to have been in the garage, blissfully working out, a peculiar detail she stressed repeatedly. This seemingly innocent alibi, however, would become the first major crack in her carefully constructed facade. In the background of the call, a detective would later note, there was an unsettling lack of panic, a strange, almost theatrical calmness that spoke volumes about the caller's state of mind. When police arrived, the scene was meticulously staged yet subtly wrong. Larry Fenton lay dead, shot multiple times in the head and torso. The official story was a break-in, a robbery gone wrong. But the house showed no signs of forced entry. Nothing of value had been taken. The only thing missing was the truth. It was a cold, brutal execution, not a sloppy burglary. Detectives immediately felt a creeping sense of unease. The killer had been precise, intimate, and had disappeared without a trace. And then there was Rebecca. While a grieving widow should be hysterical, she was, in a word, composed. She walked the police through the timeline, recounting her workout in the garage while the murder took place just feet away. The peculiar thing? She claimed to have only gone inside after the killer had fled, driven by the realization that Larry hadn't checked on her. Her version of events didn't just strain credulity. It seemed to mock the very idea of a loving marriage. The murder weapon was nowhere to be found, and the case quickly went cold, stalling the investigation for years. Years passed. Larry Fenton's murder officially became a cold case. But for Detective Mike Hasty and a handful of dedicated investigators, the file never truly closed. Rebecca Fenton, now a free woman, moved on. She cashed in on a $300,000 life insurance policy, a substantial motive that the police hadn't overlooked. She started a new relationship. Yet the ghost of her husband and the shadow of that unresolved murder followed her everywhere. The detectives knew the statistics. In domestic murders, the spouse is the prime suspect, and Rebecca's story simply had too many holes, too many convenient gaps. The entire case hinged on the absence of a struggle and the missing gun. For years, investigators chased alternative theories, trying to rule out every possible outsider, but every path led back to the same person. The final damning piece of the puzzle wasn't a confession, but the subtle, almost invisible evidence they had failed to fully appreciate initially. They had analyzed Rebecca's 911 call again and again, noticing the bizarre composure, but a deeper, more chilling clue was yet to be unearthed in her possession. 6 years after the murder, the final fatal blow to Rebecca's story landed. The murder weapon, the .38 caliber revolver, was finally recovered. It wasn't found dumped in a river or tossed in a field. It was found inside Rebecca Fenton's own vehicle. Forensic analysis quickly matched the gun to the bullets found in Larry's body and the shell casings in their home. The narrative of the random intruder was instantly vaporized. This discovery wasn't just evidence. It was a silent, terrifying confession that linked her directly to the execution. The case was now wide open, leading to an arrest in 2014, but the chilling factor didn't end with the gun. As is often the case in true crime, a new lover became an old enemy. Rebecca, in a moment of twisted trust or careless arrogance, had allegedly confided in her new boyfriend, David Campbell. Details of this private conversation, where she is said to have admitted to the crime, became the emotional stake driven into her defense. She had traded her husband's life for financial security, and now, she was trading her freedom for a secret shared with the wrong person. The suburban lie was over. 6 years of freedom and an attempt to bury the past came to a screeching halt in 2014. The discovery of the murder weapon in her own car was the unforgivable mistake that sealed Rebecca Fenton's fate. Detective Hasty and his team, who had carried Larry's case like a haunting promise, finally moved in. The arrest was quiet, almost anticlimactic for a crime so brutal. She was charged with first-degree murder. Rebecca, the composed widow, was now Rebecca, the cold-blooded killer. The facade she had maintained for years instantly dissolved under the weight of irrefutable forensic evidence. The prosecution's case was built not just on the smoking gun, but on betrayal. Rebecca's former boyfriend, David Campbell, testified that she had confessed to him, detailing how she had moved the body and gotten rid of the evidence. This testimony was a devastating blow. It stripped away her carefully crafted defense, the narrative of the innocent victim of a home invasion. The jury heard a tale of calculated deceit and financial desperation, culminating in a cold, deadly act to cash in on a $300,000 policy. The money, it turned out, was worth more to her than her husband's life or her own freedom. The suburban lie was replaced by the harsh reality of a prison cell. Faced with overwhelming evidence, a murder weapon in her car and a confession to her lover, Rebecca Fenton's defense was forced to rely on pure, cold denial. Her lawyers argued that police had tunnel vision, overlooking potential alternate suspects. They questioned why the murder weapon, if used by Rebecca, would remain in her vehicle for 6 years. The defense painted her as a woman victimized twice, first by the loss of her husband, and then by an incompetent police investigation. Desperate for a conviction, they tried to re-emphasize the alibi, the workout in the garage, as a plausible reality, a widow simply too preoccupied to notice a deadly crime. Ultimately, the jury had to choose between a flimsy, 7-year-old alibi and a mountain of forensic and circumstantial evidence. The lack of emotion in Rebecca's 911 call, the convenient disappearance of the gun, the $300,000 motive, and the lover's damning testimony painted a portrait of a woman capable of the ultimate betrayal. After days of deliberation, the verdict was delivered: guilty of first-degree murder. The courtroom was silent as the judge handed down the mandatory sentence. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. The justice that had been delayed for 6 years was finally served. The final horrifying truth was that Larry Fenton had never been safe. The biggest threat to his life had been sleeping right next to him. Rebecca Fenton now sits in a Florida correctional facility, serving a life sentence. Her story serves as a chilling testament to the financial desperation and cold calculation that can hide beneath the surface of respectability. She didn't murder in a moment of passion. She executed a meticulous plan, convinced of her own superior intelligence. For 6 years, she watched the police chase ghosts while she lived off the spoils of her crime, believing she had achieved the perfect murder. The greatest tragedy is not just Larry's death, but the betrayal. He was killed by the person he trusted most, all for a paper check. The case of Rebecca Fenton is a powerful reminder. The faces of true evil rarely belong to strangers in the night. More often, they are the faces of those closest to us, masked by comfort and routine. A suburban home became a crime scene. A loving relationship a financial transaction, and a wife became a cold-blooded killer. But the most terrifying question remains: how many other perfect suburban lies are still out there, waiting for a misplaced gun or a careless confession to bring the darkness to light? Let us know in the comments. What part of Rebecca's plan do you think was the biggest mistake? If you want to dive deeper into the chilling psychology of financial motives in murder, you need to see our next video on the case we're calling The Black Widow of Beverly Hills. Click here to watch now. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the darkest corners of true crime.